What are we going to do tonight? We're going to make this Chenille Shamrock pillow. And we're going to do it in two different ways. This one is done with an embroidery machine. And I haven't put this on a pillow form. And if you don't have an embroidery machine that accommodates something this big, then you can do it by sewing machine. And here's the one I did by sewing machine. So I'll be showing you how to do both of these this evening. And I'll even show you how to make this pillow to finish the pillow so that it looks really nice. Okay, let's get started. Okay, now we're going to make the same Chenille Shamrock pillow, or the pillow front, using regular sewn chenille. So this is the traditional way of making chenille, sort of. Has my own twist on it. So what you need is, first of all, you need your background fabric about 1 inch to 2 inches bigger than you think you're going to need. I have I think a 12-inch pillow, so I'm going to put this on a 14 by 14. I've sort of put in the middle where it goes. Okay, you're going to need your pattern. You can either draw your own shamrock, or if you like, you can email me at waltzquilt@yahoo.com, and I'll be happy to send you the pattern that I drew out. There's nothing fancy about it, but all you do is I put registration marks here. See how it's got the little X there? So out of the way. So what I'm going to do is I just fold it along one line, match them up, tape them down. Here's my tape. Here's the tape. So just tape it together. And then you're going to trace out your shamrock onto a piece of steamacine. So this, I used steamacine, but you could use any fusible web. So I have traced it to the back of my fabric. Now what you're going to need for fabric is you're going to need one in a woven. This I'm using 10 inches by 10 inches square. So this is regular woven fabric. A batik works really well because it's kind of hard to cut through a batik with sharp scissors, because this is one you don't want to cut through. And then you're going to need 3 10-inch by 10-inch squares of, I'm using a loosely woven flannel. And then, or you could use any loosely woven fabric like homespun. That's a good one to use, or a linen type fabric. You're going to need to have a bunch of these little 1/2-inch bias strips cut. And I'll show you how I cut these in just a minute. So what I want to do is, I traced on my pattern to the steamacine here. And I just need a good pair of scissors. And I'm going to cut out this shape. Okay. So simply cut it out. And then cut right on the line. Don't need to strive for perfection, because chenille is going to be, once it's all fuzzed up, it's just not going to matter if you've missed it just a little bit. You can use a shamrock, or this could be any shape you like. It doesn't have to be for St. Patrick's Day. And here's my center. I'm going to peel the paper off. So you'll follow the manufacturer's instructions in order to fuse this web down. I'm just going to place it in the center, and you can place it any way you like, any orientation. I'm going to sort of put it in the middle, maybe right there. I'm just going to eyeball it, but you could measure it if you like. There we go. Alright, and then just take a hot iron with, this one says no steam, and just fuse it down. Okay, I have threaded my machine with just green cotton thread, ordinary sewing thread. You don't have to use embroidery thread or bobbin thread or anything like that. Okay, this is well fused down. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the machine. I'm going to switch to the open toe foot just so I can see a little better. And I'm just going to put on a zigzag with a really narrow, maybe a 2 millimeter wide zigzag, and maybe a 1.4 length is fine. Here, I'm just going to zigzag it down, just loosely. Just want to seal in these edges. Okay, that's well stitched, but I'm getting skip stitches. I wonder why. Oh well, this doesn't matter too much. Now I'm going to switch this to what we call a bean stitch, which is, or a triple stitch. And what this does is this is going to seal down. This is going, you don't need the back stitch, so it goes 2 stitches forward and 1 back. And I'm going to switch out the needle on this machine. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I simply put over the stitching that I had, I put my 3 layers of the flannel and pinned it in the corners. Now I'm going to work from the wrong side here, and I'm going to, you can start anywhere, and I'm putting on the bean stitch, which is 3 stitches forward and 1 back. On this particular machine, it's stitch number 1-05. My sleeves up. And I'm going to just stitch all the way around, just on the outer edge of that zigzag. You could use a walking foot if you feel like your fabric is moving around, but it should be just fine. Need the pins anymore. You can trim this now or do it later. It does not matter. If you're going to trim it now, you would trim it about 1/4 of an inch from this outside line, being very careful not to stitch, not to cut the background fabric. And of course you would clip a curve. Here, I'm just going to cut it till here. It helps to have a good sharp pair of scissors to cut through all layers. If not, try cutting through just 1 layer at a time. I'll just cut that off for now. Okay. Does have to be super neat because remember, this is all going to get chenilled. Okay. Next, I'm going to switch to a guide foot. Okay, we're going to use the V foot instead of the open toe here. And what the V foot is, it is just a regular J foot. It's flat on the bottom just like the J foot, but it has this arm right here with all these markings that we can use to help guide our stitches. So what I'm going to do is put this on the machine. I'm just using the same stitch. And okay, so my needle is right. Okay, if you can see that. Here's my needle, okay? And I've got that right there in front of the 1/2 inch mark. And at the 1, it's telling me that if I use this marking, which is the 4th marking in from the right, that is going to give me 1/2 inch. First of all, I stitched up the middle while the camera wasn't on. Okay, I stitched right up the middle with that bean stitch. I'm coming over here, and this is where, and I'm going to keep this at, well, actually I want is at 1 centimeter, so I'm going a little bit less. The needle mark is the first red little notch. Again, let me go really close. Okay, the needle is right here under this first notch, the first red line. Okay, I want to use, actually I want to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1/2 inch. See if you put it here. 1/2 inch is right here at the, well, it's between the 4th and the 5th little red line there. I'm going to pick the 5th red line. I'm going to take a little tiny bit of blue tape, just a small sliver. Don't need much. Here, and I'm going to put it right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line right there. I'm just going to put that tape there just so that you can see and I can see where I'm going to start stitching. So anyway, I just go, and I'm going to keep that right here on this line as I stitch around. Now what you probably could do is every time you have a mark that you've got to pivot, just draw a line so you know where to stop and start. It just helps you. So as I'm going around this line, as soon as my needle hits that diagonal, I know it's time to turn. There we go, perfect. Just overstitch it a little bit. There we go. And now the next round. So I will start over here. Let's see, the same line sort of goes there. I'm just starting it in the middle. And then do the next round. Now, see how that one, we really have about a 1/2 inch on either side, so I'm just going to stop there and then come over here, probably this way. Same thing here, it's kind of right in the middle. You stop it. Probably going to stitch right into there. Okay, that, because I want to leave about a 1/2 inch, so I'm going to just cut into here. I'm leaving that 1/2 inch and going around. If I have to break it up, it's not a problem. What I want to do is just simply maintain this 1/2 inch. Okay, where else do I need? Okay, I need a little bit here. So I'm just going to take an angle. As long as I'm maintaining a 1/2 inch, we're good. And probably over here too. I think I will take one right here and divide it up. Okay, and now to create the chenille. So now I'm going to cut around here. Now I'm going to head and finish cutting this off camera, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all the way around the outside, and then I'll show you how I cut the inside. Here, I've already trimmed it from the outside. I've cut it approximately 1/4 inch from the edge, from the stitching. If you want this to be more like traditional chenille, and traditional chenille usually has an outline with an extra thick border on it. So if you're going to want that, this is where the bias strips come in. We're going to need some 1/2 inch wide bias strips out of this flannel in order to create the chenille. So the easiest way is I've cut my block here is 10 inches long, but I'm just going to simply fold corners like that. And then I'm going to, let me switch it this way. Okay. Just to make it easier. Okay. All right, I've folded it. So I have a corner, and I'm just going to eyeball it that straight, because we're going to need some bias strips, little 1/2 inch wide bias strips. Nice sharp blade, sorta, or not. All right. When I'm dealing with bias, I don't try to go over it again. It's just easier to just simply snip out the little threads. And then I'm going to go and change my blade, because apparently it's not very sharp. These do not have to be perfect. I'm going to just turn this around just so that I can get good cuts on it. Lay it out flat. Alrighty, and now that it's at the 1/2 inch, I'm just going to simply measure 1/2 inch on my quilting ruler, and just go straight. Is this locked? Okay. Okay. And I'm going to need probably, well, it depends. I'm going to need 2 layers of it for this, so I'm probably going to cut most of this. But I'm going to start out. I don't usually cut them all. I'll cut about 10 of them. And then when this is off the mat, scoot it over a little bit and just continue going. You will have some short ones and long ones, but we're not going to really have any waste with this, because we're going to just layer one on top of the other. So you're going to you're going to sew these on. Go back to using the open toe foot so I can see better that this is in the middle. So we're going to still use the bean stitch. So it's still set on the same triple stitch. I'm going to attempt to stitch directly where I stitched before. And it may or may not. And I'm using 2 more layers. So I'm going to stitch right on top, right through the middle. Okay, that's a little much. I'm going to go back to a regular straight stitch. Okay, I'm just going to take a regular straight stitch. I don't want the lock stitch. I want it to regularly back tack. I'm going to cut at every corner so it makes each of the edges a little fuzzier. Okay. And each time I have to stop. Okay, put this in the middle. And each time I have to turn a curve, then what I will do is I will stop and cut and overlap that there. Alright. Right in the middle, and it stops here. So here we go. Okay, this I'm going to switch to the regular J-foot because it's curling. The bias strips are curling up inside the foot, and it was giving me a funny look that I didn't like. Okay, and then cut here. I can pull this back and start here. Okay, and right here, just gonna go maybe a little bit shorter stitch length, maybe a 2 or a 1.5. Then when I come to these curves, I simply sort of push it into place. This is easier to do on the sewing machine, a lot easier than doing this on the embroidery machine. Just go around the corner. And I'm going to clip it before I get there. Back tack. Okay, and do the next lobe. Okay, next. And just sort of curve. This is on the bias. It's easy to curve this with your fingers. Just press it down. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm cutting it straight. Okay, let's get this way. And I can trim this later if it's not right. And back tack. And turn it and just smooth it down. Okay, I have to go find out why Lily's crying. She's downstairs crying her head off. Okay, I will be right back as soon as I check on Lily. Okay, here it is all stitched. So it's double stitched around the outline. And so now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut in between the lines. Just like we did with the embroidered one. And so you just start out by, this one's the hardest one here, because we need to cut in between. So I'm going to just snip into one layer. Be very careful not to go through all the through the bottom layer, or cut through the whole thing. So you're just simply cutting one layer at a start out by just doing one layer at a time until we cut all the way through, and I can see the background fabric, if you can see it. So anyway, let's cut this. Cut into the corners. Okay, so like I said, I start, and if you're only going through one layer at a time, that's fine. Just keep cutting until you get to the bottom. The first little bit is the hardest till you get to it. There we go. Okay, and now we can start to cut. Scissors. These are better, these are sharper. You want scissors that are sharp all the way to the tips. There we go. And now this side. Okay. And that stem is the hardest part because it's a little narrower than I would like it to be. But that's okay. And now we're going to start all the way around in between the layers. I find since that first layer of fabric is fused to the background fabric, it is actually a lot harder to cut through, you know, to accidentally cut all the way through it. Okay. And as I start to go around this corner, I realize I may have to clip the curves. On the bias, it's not necessary to do that on the bias strips because they are on the bias, but this tends to be on the grain and therefore it doesn't want to fluff out, so you have to give it some clips. And anywhere like inside of here, the inside, you know, with your tight clips, and then the corners, you need to clip all these corners. Okay, let me do a little clipping here and here. And then into this corner. And then around. I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting these off camera because this is time consuming. You don't want to rush it, because when I do rush it, I find I clip too deep into, and the other one I went through the bottom fabric. Okay, I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, I've cut all of the chenille, and I've clipped all the corners and clipped the curves in the corners, and now we're ready to chenille it. So I'm going to mist it a little bit, not a lot, just mist it some, and then just start to there we go. A lot of times it's easy to just take it in your hands like this and just scrub away. Or just throw it in the washing machine. Although if you're going to put it in the washing machine, I recommend you put it in a lingerie bag because this is going to fuzz up your dryer and your washing machine. But it chenilles really nicely. And I'm just using a toothbrush. Did I cut all the way through? Yeah. Sometimes I'm not sure if I got it all the way through. And yes, it's going to get all this fuzziness, but that's fine. And a lot of times on the sides, if you just take it and, like you're brushing teeth, hard, scrubbing it. So if you just scrub it up, and every once in a while when it gets dry, just mist it up a little bit. If you've got a lot of extra long strings, that's okay, just trim them. Okay. And there you have it. Well, I'll finish this later. Actually, this is addictive. Just sit there and play with this because the more you scrub, the more it ravels. And it's starting to look really cute. Okay. Now we'll go on to the section on how to put this pillow together and how to make the perfect pillow. If you're planning on doing this by sewing machine and you don't have a good shamrock pattern or drawing that you can use, then send me an email request and I'll send you a PDF that's got just a copy of the drawing that I used or that I made. If you have any questions or comments, please send me an email at waltzquilt@yahoo.com. And until next week, keep sewing. Bye.